the young woman Nolan spent part of that afternoon with on Horn Island. Her sister Gracie posted a public statement on behalf of the family. According to that statement, Nolan's friends were pressuring him to wrap up his conversation with Katie so he could come back with them. Katie assumed Nolan was heading back to the boat. She believed his friends would not leave without him. She made it home that day on a separate boat entirely. Think about what that means. In Warren's version, Nolan chose to stay. In Katie's family's version, Nolan believed he was going back. Two people, same afternoon, same conversation, opposite conclusions about which direction Nolan thought he was walking. And here's the third data point that sits underneath both of those accounts. Nolan's best friend, Javon Williams, told CNN on the record, independently, that in the entire time he'd known Nolan, he had never once seen him stay behind when his group left. His parents confirmed the same thing separately. Christine and Elmore Wansley both said publicly that they raised Nolan with one explicit rule. You go with the group, you come back with the group. Three sources, best friend, mother, father, all independently describing the same lifelong behavioral pattern. A pattern the friend group's account requires you to believe Nolan broke for the first and only time on the one day it cost him his life. Does that prove anything happened to Nolan against his will? No. People break patterns. An 18-year-old meets someone new on a beach and for once makes a different call. That happens. But it's a detail investigators have to weigh, and it pulls against the version of events where Nolan just casually decided to stay behind. Now let's get to the interview itself, because this is where it gets specific. Warren Hudson sat down with Brandon Tatum in the days after Nolan's body was found, along with two other friends. This was a media interview, not a law enforcement interrogation. That distinction is going to matter in a few minutes. Tatum asks Warren directly, "Where was Nolan when you guys were getting ready to leave?" And Warren answers, his exact words, "The last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. Sit with that for a second. Not sometime that afternoon, not a while before we left. 3 o'clock, specific, confident, a precise hour stated without hesitation." He then describes what Nolan was doing at 3 o'clock. Says Nolan was cradling Katie in his arms. Says the last time he looked at Nolan, Nolan was shaking his head laughing. Says that was it. Quote, "That was the last time I laid eyes on him. The last time I laid eyes on him." His words, not mine. Now, a few minutes later in that same interview, Warren is describing the departure, the group getting ready to leave, the boat situation at 4:30, and listen to what he says. "Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl, and then my buddy yelled at Nolan, 'Get on the boat, we're leaving.' Nolan said, 'No, I'm staying. I'm going to ride with somebody else.' Think about the mechanics of that for a second. If the last time you laid eyes on someone was 3 o'clock, you cannot describe where that person was sitting at 4:30. You can't name who they were sitting with. You can't describe a specific physical position near a specific boat 90 minutes after you said you stopped seeing them. Those two statements are 90 minutes apart on his own timeline, and they were spoken less than 2 minutes apart in the same interview. That's not an opinion. That's not speculation. That's two pieces of Warren's own account placed next to each other, and they do not fit. Now, most people watching that interview the first time didn't catch it. Brandon Tatum, sitting right there conducting the conversation, didn't catch it. He didn't stop. He didn't say, "Wait, which one was it?" He didn't circle back. The interview just kept moving forward. But a former U.S. Army interrogator did catch it. His name is known online as Jolly Good Ginger, and his credentials aren't theoretical. He was trained by the United States government as a human intelligence collector. He conducted real-world interrogations, source operations, and strategic debriefings. His entire professional training was built around one skill: sit across from a human being and identify the moment their story stops being consistent. And when he reviewed this interview, he didn't just flag the 3 o'clock 4:30 contradiction, he went further. He pointed out something else almost nobody noticed. Warren says his buddy yelled for Nolan. His buddy, not Warren. In Warren's own telling of this story, he is never the one looking for Nolan, never the one yelling for Nolan, never the one walking over to check on him. And remember, this is the same interview where Warren opens by calling Nolan like a brother to me, more than a friend, like a brother. But when the boat is about to leave and his brother isn't on it, Warren doesn't go find him, someone else does, in Warren's own version. And here's the part the interrogator called blatant deception. Warren describes this exchange where his buddy yells at Nolan to get on the boat, and Nolan refuses. But notice what Warren also said earlier. Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl. If Warren's only information about Nolan's location at 4:30 came from overhearing his buddy yelling, there is no way he would know Nolan was sitting specifically by the boat with Katie. That level of visual detail doesn't come from hearing someone else's conversation, it comes from seeing it, directly. But Warren already told us the last time he saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. So which is it? The interrogator's assessment? That contradiction is, in his words, to be immediately exploited and interrogated. In a real interrogation setting, that's the moment you stop everything. You don't move forward, you go back. You press. You make the subject reconcile those two statements before a single other question gets asked. Because unresolved contradictions are where the real information lives. That did not happen in this interview. Now, to be fair, and we owe you this, there is an innocent explanation, and it deserves to be stated just as clearly as the concerning one. Memory under stress is unreliable. That's not an opinion. That's decades of documented forensic psychology. People cannot accurately recall precise clock times hours after the fact, especially at a chaotic event with 200 people on a beach on the 4th of July. People compress memories. They conflate moments. Warren may have merged two separate things, his last meaningful one-on-one interaction with Nolan around 3 o'clock, and a general sense, not a direct visual memory, of Nolan's approximate location as the group was leaving. Smashed together into one narrated moment that sounds more specific than it actually was. People do this constantly when recounting emotional days. It is a known, documented feature of human recall. It is not evidence of concealment. That's one explanation. Here's the other. If Warren did have direct visual contact with Nolan at 4:30, close enough to describe his exact position near the boat,